Hello and welcome to the Soft UK podcast. I'm Kate Hart and I'm the Communications Officer for the charity Soft, which is a support organisation for families affected by Trisomy 13 and 18. Today's podcast is a roundtable discussion on the subject of the EastEnders HIV storyline. We're joined by Nora Shannon, a geneticist from the NHS, and Laura Petrie, a Soft trustee and support volunteer. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
The discussion has come about due to the confusion that's been caused by the EastEnders storyline involving a couple who are pregnant with a baby girl who has Edwards syndrome. The father, Zach, is also actually HIV positive, and he hasn't disclosed this to the mother, Whitney. Although this has actually been addressed in the story, whereby the routine blood tests that are offered for infectious diseases as part of the routine screening during the first trimester have actually come back clear for HIV. So that means that HIV has not been passed on to the baby in this case. However, we have still seen a lot of people coming through to SOF for more information, and they're looking for the link between trisomy 18 and HIV. Since SOFT was invited to work alongside EastEnders on the portrayal of the storyline, we feel it is important and responsible to address this. So, with all of that in mind, I thought I could ask you both to briefly give us some of your background and experience to set the scene for our listeners, please. So, Nora, could you please tell us about your professional experience and your involvement with SOFT?
Hello, hi, Kate. I'm a clinical geneticist. I'm based in the NHS Clinical Genetics Service in Nottingham, and I've been involved with SOFT as a medical advisor for a good number of years. I think probably more than about 15 years now. So I have a paediatric training background, so I've got a lot of experience of dealing with children and adults who have genetic conditions.
Fantastic. Thanks for that introduction. And Laura, could you please tell us about your personal experience with trisomy 18 and your involvement with SOFT?
Hi, yes. So we had a prenatal diagnosis of our daughter Charlotte with Edwards syndrome back in 2006. We carried on with the pregnancy and we had her for 6 months and 3 days. We then went on to have another child that had other complications where we had to end the pregnancy. I've been part of SOFT on and off over the years in different capacities, including just now a trustee, and also I've done quite a lot of family support, and I'm currently helping as a SOFT coordinator also.
Fantastic, thank you. Thanks both. Nora, perhaps you could start off by giving us the medical explanation of trisomy 18 and how and when this occurs during pregnancy.
Okay, so trisomy 18 is a chromosome condition. Chromosomes are like little suitcases that hold our genes together. So genes are like the recipe for how someone's put together. And we have a complete set of that recipe in every cell of our body, and they're packaged into these things called chromosomes. So chromosomes are given numbers based on how large they are and the pattern of stripes on the outside. And there are lots of variations from the standard pattern of having 2 copies of all our 23 chromosomes. And some of those additional patterns are quite well recognized. We will have heard about conditions like Down syndrome, where someone has an extra copy of chromosome 21. And the other common situations where we have an additional copy, which is called trisomy, would be Edwards syndrome, which is trisomy 18, or Petrie syndrome, which is trisomy 13. There are variations on trisomy 18 where someone may not have a complete additional copy, but this is the most common way that we see this coming about, when the chromosomes don't separate into exact halves when we're making egg and sperm cells. So it happens at a very early stage in the process of making a baby.
Okay, fantastic. And Nora, could you tell us how HIV is transmitted, please?
Okay, so HIV is an infectious condition and it's found in bodily fluids. So we get infectious quantities of virus in blood, we see it in genital fluids and also in breast milk. So the main ways in which it might come about would be either somebody sharing injecting equipment such as needles, or from unprotected sex, or we might see it being passed from a mother to her baby during a pregnancy or at birth, or as a result of breastfeeding.
Okay, hence why it's important that this is one of the diseases that's checked for during the early stages of a pregnancy. Okay, thank you. So yeah, they're quite different. You know, one's a syndrome, one's a disease, and they occur for different reasons. The one is spread very differently to the other, which is something that just occurs. Can I say spontaneously during conception? Is that fair?
So in the most common form of trisomy, yes, it would be something that happens as a fresh change in that child's genetic makeup. There are some rarer forms of Edwards syndrome where one person in the couple may carry a difference in their genetic makeup called a translocation, which means that you're more likely to have a child with a trisomy. But in most cases, it will be a fresh change in that child's genetic makeup. And it's quite different to HIV, which is an infectious condition which can be passed from person to person as a result of the virus being passed on.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Laura, in your time as a support volunteer, have you ever come across a family where there is a diagnosis also of HIV?
No, I've not actually. In any of the families I've supported or have been aware of, have never had a diagnosis of HIV and Edwards syndrome.
And you've not heard of anyone else on the team discussing a case like this?
No, I've not. Not in any of the we've had. So we're certainly not my knowledge at Soft UK.
No. And in your experience, what kind of people have you supported in the past? You know, just has it been quite a range, a mix of people?
Absolutely. So basically, we've had various different families come through, from single parents to couples. We support, obviously, we've done support for families that are carrying on with their pregnancies, and also families that are choosing to end their pregnancy. So
great. And from an age and ethnic background, are there any, you know, is there a wide range, or is it kind of one type of person that comes through?
No, we see a various range of different ethnic backgrounds that comes through, and single or as again a couple as well.
Yeah. And I think there's a link with age. Nora, you might be able to help me with this, but we also do know that there are some very young mothers in the community who've had pregnancies affected by trisomy 18 or trisomy 13. Is that correct?
Yes, we do see that. We know that trisomies, both 21, 13 and 18, do become more common in pregnancies as someone becomes older. But it's a condition that happens spontaneously and can happen to someone at any age.
Okay. And then Nora, anecdotally, we hear lots of women saying that they previously had a miscarriage before or after having a pregnancy affected by trisomy. Is there any explanation for this?
Okay, so we know that miscarriages are very common in the general population, and so it's probably partly that it's something that is unrelated, but also if you have somebody who is an older mum who's over the age of 35 or getting up to being close to 40 or in her early 40s, then we know that because at that stage somebody is more likely to be having babies where the chromosomes aren't balanced because of their age, then they may have miscarriages due to that. And one of the reasons that miscarriages are common in the general population is because we're all able to have a baby who has chromosomes that aren't balanced, and a lot of these babes will be lost at an early stage. So it's part of kind of the way that nature works, is that miscarriages can be a screening process for babies who don't have a completely balanced set of genetic information.
Okay, thank you. Laura, have you found that many people who come to you looking for support after being given a diagnosis of trisomy 13 or 18 are looking for a reason why this has happened? Do they often blame themselves and think it's something that they've caused?
Absolutely. So we have families who come through asking if it's something they have done or they've maybe not done in a lead up to their pregnancy, and they question themselves, there can be quite often a bit of blame until they're made aware of the facts that there's actually nothing they've done that would have caused this.
Okay, thank you. So before we end off, I just wondered if either of you wanted to add anything or mention something else that we haven't already covered. Give you the chance if there's something you thought of.
I think the only thing would be really just to emphasize that these are two storylines that are being run along in parallel, but they're actually about two completely different conditions. They're not related. And I suppose just to reassure people that if you've had a baby who has got trisomy, or a pregnancy that's been diagnosed having trisomy, this doesn't mean that you might have had HIV at the time, and the same is true the other way around. If you happen to have HIV and you're on treatment, you're not at an increased risk of having a baby with trisomy.
Well, I really hope that this discussion has laid this misconception to rest, and that we've managed to prove that there is no link between trisomy 18 and HIV. Before we end off, I would just like to say that SOFT support the need for mothers to have the test for these infectious diseases during pregnancy to prevent the virus being transmitted from the mother to the baby, and also to say that the prognosis for HIV is now actually really good, and that we encourage people in this situation to follow their treatment plan and to take their medication. So thank you to you both, Nora and Laura, and to everyone listening. We hope that this has helped provide some clarity on an issue which we think has been seemed quite confusing. And whether you're an expectant parent, a bereaved parent, a family member, or a professional, if you need support or information, we are here for you. So please reach out to SOFT, and our contact details can be found in the podcast blurb.